Hello, welcome to Group 4's presentation of Case2-3 Ford Motor Company Supply Chain Strategy. Group 4 consists of Fabiola Contreras, Denise Lopez, Calvin Elder, Eric Doyle, and I, Ruben Garcia. Let's take a look at a couple of general issues regarding this case. At the time of this case, Ford Motor Company was the second largest industrial corporation in the world. Ford was looking to increase its quality, reduce its cycle times, and reduce the cost of production and development. Also, Ford had launched an initiative, Ford 2000, which called for the dramatic reduction in cost by re-engineering and globalizing corporate organizations and processes. Ford 2000 called for the consolidation of North American, European, and other international organizations under one globalized system. Also, the auto industry itself was becoming more competitive and was facing the potential problem of overcapacity, basically having too many cars available on the market. The Ford CEO at the time shifted focus to shareholder value and customer responsiveness. This led to challenges for several of the Ford executives, one of them being Terry Takai, Supply Chain Management Director.
Hello, Calvin Elder here, and I will be walking you through the outline for our video presentation. We'll start on slide A with the general issues that Ford Motor Company had to overcome as they pivoted through their IT transformation journey. We will move on to slide B for main stakeholders, and then we'll touch upon the theory and concepts that are relevant to the course in this case study as well. We will then detail the symptoms and problems that Ford Motor Company faced, as well as the alternative solutions and evaluation criteria that they underwent. We then will discuss a best solution and implementation plan for Ford Motor Company to move forward, and evaluation and review of that project as well. Lastly, we will conclude with the current status of Ford Motor Company so that we can wrap up any loose ends and paint a clear picture on how Ford Motor Company was able to overcome all the previously mentioned problems and use technology to better their supply chain for the long term. Thank you.
The challenge for Terry Takai was to present to senior Ford executives recommendations on how to use emerging information technology and ideas from high-tech industries to change how they were dealing with their suppliers. There were two camps in Terry's department in regards to how to make this happen. First camp favored virtual integration. This was a tech-heavy solution on how to manage their suppliers. This is a system that worked well for Dell, and Ford thought they could use this system with the same results. The second camp in Terry's department really didn't have a solution. Their stance was that Ford's procurement department was much more independent than Dell's, and that the supplier base Ford was managing was much too large for a virtual integration to work. This became the challenge Terry Takai was facing.
Hello, my name is Eric Doyle, and I will be discussing the main stakeholders. So for Ford Motor Company and the supply chain strategy, the main stakeholders internally are the customers. This is the retail customers, the businesses, and any organization that's using Ford automobiles. And the suppliers, that's the raw materials and the manufacturers and anybody who supplies parts for the Ford. And dealers are also very important. They are going to be selling the cars, and employees as well, the over 370,000 employees at the time of this case study and any employee currently of Ford. Externally, we have the governments, over 200 countries that Ford is operating in, and investors, and the global community as a whole.
The business model is to increase shareholder value and customer responsiveness. Ford's goals and objectives is to reduce working capital, reduce inventory obsolescence, and use IT to improve customer satisfaction. To achieve these goals, Ford plans to use virtual integration in addition to its restructuring plan Ford 2000, along with its project order to delivery, which consists of reducing to 15 days from customers' orders to delivery of completed product.
Hello, this is Denise, and I will be presenting on the symptoms and problems. It is important that Ford Motor Company addresses a few issues to determine which information technology strategy is the best fit for them. Let's first take a look at the first symptom. Ford failed to involve dealers in predicting consumer purchasing patterns, causing forecasting issues. Ford decides to launch the Ford 2000 initiatives, which were the Ford production system and an order to delivery, to make its manufacturers more responsive to customer demand. Second, there's a lack of relationship with lower level tier suppliers, resulting in a challenge to control their traditional and massive database of suppliers. This is when Ford begins to identify ways to manage a virtual integrated system to better control their supply chain operation in a more cost-effective way. And lastly, Ford recognized that in order to enhance customer satisfaction, they needed to improve their supply chain system to reduce the order to delivery timeline from 45 plus days down to 15 days. Hello, this is Denise again. Now let's take a closer look at the alternatives for Ford Motor Company. The first alternative is to develop a virtual integrated supply chain. Some advantages to this alternative include improved customers and suppliers relationships, decrease inventory and middleman cost, strengthen collaboration between suppliers, and it would allow Ford to have direct control over the customer service experience and supplier activities. Some disadvantages are that management changes are costly and disruptive. It's also time consuming and it poses a risk to the industry. The second alternative is do nothing. An advantage to this is that no changes would occur to existing operations. The disadvantage to this is that order fulfillment will remain at 45 plus days. There's no IT related cost reduction, and there would continue to be poor communication between stakeholders.
Calvin Elder here, and I'll be walking you through the Ford 2000 Initiative Project Implementation Plan. As is with any project management is key. So you'll notice I have here 5 years, which is the entire duration of the listed project, or various projects, I should say, plan. And within that, there are kind of key highlights like assigning project management and identifying key stakeholders within Ford Motor Company, acquiring tech and mapping that acquired tech to business processes for about 6 months, because you want to make sure things are getting off the ground properly, and then developing a site rollout strategy. So the whole first segment here is project management, again, which lasts the duration of the 5-year term. But most of the initial highlights are going to probably roll off after about 6 months once things are in full swing. A major component here for Ford was the Ford production system. I did merge the the actual success of Ford's ability to merge their global operations. I did put that under Ford production system as it was an integral part in assessing and then rolling out the transformation to those systems. I also have here a synchronous material flow, which Ford wanted to optimize and put in a continuous state their material processing and flow. And also the inline vehicle sequencing, which was a continuous building in sequential order along their factory lines, which ensured suppliers could deliver to the right place at the right time. So within the Ford production system was really about consolidation of processes, of facility, and more so facility flow. Additionally, Ford looked into their order to delivery process, and they identified 4 key categories here. So we have that probably rolling out around a year here, in which case you have ongoing forecasting as a major focus, which is just going to be a shift in how you're doing your reporting. So I have that at about 90 days. 15-day ordering banks, that's just a process change, which should take around 90 days as well. Regional mixing centers, depending on if they already own those, is a optimization or a complete building purchase, in which case, we're looking at about 2 years to get that done. And then an order amendment processing switch, which it takes a lot of training, a lot of focus. You want to make sure you get that done right. You okay, about 365 days. And then lastly, Ford had a initiative to invest into industry best practice for the retail industry to make sure that they're remaining on top of their actions as a sales organization, but also being more competitive with third-party vehicle retailers that were popping up like AutoNation. So a continuous 2-year initiative starting in 1998 on July 1st to again put money into the R&D of retail best practice. And then we'll wrap it up with assessing the project performance. You'll notice I have that at 1,825 days as well, so roughly the full 5-year term there. And that's again just to make sure that as they are continuously implementing these new solutions and processes, that they are actually coming out as they would like and actually helping Ford Motor Company. Thank you.
In this case, Ford wants to change the way it interacts with the suppliers by using Dell's business model, which had aggressively used to reduce working capital and exposure to inventory obsolescence. The current challenge is Ford's existing supply base. As the company has grown over the years, so has its supply base. In contrast to Dell, Ford has thousands of suppliers all over the world which have been divided into Tier 1 and Tier 2, whereas Dell's supplier list is definitely much smaller. Even though Ford began to decrease its number of suppliers and develop its reconstruction plan for 2000 and merged all of its automotive operations into one global organization, it also developed the project order to delivery Ford production system, and for the first time published its Ford retail network to take advantage of the retail vehicle distribution in North America. Due to its size and complexity, Ford cannot use Dell's integration of supply chain model. Automakers must follow rules and regulations, whereas computer manufacturers don't have to follow rules and regulations. A computer can be purchased online, whereas a car, it's necessary to purchase in person because a customer would always want to test drive a car before purchasing. In automotive, it's a long-term investment versus a computer it's a short-term investment. My recommendation for Ford is to use some key points from Dell's business model and instead focus on its internal strategic relationships by allowing its Tier 1 and Tier 2 suppliers limited access to its central design database. Also, Ford should continue forecasting demand from dealers. This will reduce obsolete inventory and working capital and increase a rapid turnover.
Hello again. So I'm going to be discussing the current status of Ford. There's a lot of virtual integration that was considered risky back in 2000 because it would require a lot of investment in infrastructure and a lot of changes to go on in the supply chain of Ford. Now they have a lot more of virtual integration going on. One great example is that Ford is shifting to an online build-to-order model of selling new cars, with demand pull driving efficiency within the selling process. In the direct model, the car manufacturer is able to deliver the product to the customer while knowing exactly what they need from the supplier. So all the materials are already known in advance. And the goal is to modernize the order to delivery process by keeping dealer inventories low, increasing customer satisfaction, and lowering the cost of production. So it actually reminds me a lot of the Dell model where you know exactly what you want and you just put your order and then you get exactly what you want. And so you can see that there's a vehicle scheduled for production and that you can follow it along, kind of like an Amazon tracking order. You're actually seeing when your car is going to be completed. The virtual integration within the supply chain is now being achieved by using less suppliers and focusing on long-term relationships. A globally connected IT network has allowed for cost-cutting and reliability. Procurement is integrated into the system instead of simply looking for the right material at the lowest price. But the chip shortage and the aftermath of the coronavirus has caused Ford to take another look at the costs of just-in-time manufacturing, and keeping a large supply of critical materials and a good relationship with direct manufacturers is an important part of the new strategy. So things are always evolving, and Ford is definitely at the forefront of that. And it's rather fascinating to see that they have been able to integrate in the way that they wanted to during this case study. Thanks.